Welcome to Echo of the Dream Lab, where we explore the hidden science of sleep, dreams, and the mysteries of consciousness. Close your eyes for a moment, and remember the most vivid dream you've ever had. Not just any dream, but that one dream that felt so incredibly real, you woke up confused about which world was the true one. Maybe you felt textures more vividly than you ever had in waking life. Maybe colors seemed impossibly bright. Maybe emotions hit you with an intensity that left you breathless, even hours after waking. Now, before we dive deeper, I want you to do something for me. Tonight, before you go to sleep, set an intention. Tell yourself that you'll remember your dreams. Keep a notebook by your bed. And when you wake up, before you check your phone, before you start your day, write down whatever fragments you can recall. Because what we're about to explore today isn't just abstract science. It's about you. It's about the other world you visit every single night. The world that sometimes feels more vivid, more emotionally true, more overwhelmingly real than the one you're experiencing right now. Here's the uncomfortable question that scientists have been wrestling with for decades. What if those dreams weren't less real than your waking life, but in some fundamental way, more real? This isn't philosophy. This isn't mysticism. This is neuroscience confronting one of the most profound mysteries of human consciousness. This video is the result of months of research, diving deep into sleep neuroscience, consciousness studies, and the latest findings on why dreams can achieve a quality of reality that waking life somehow can't match. And I promise you, by the end of this, you'll never think about your dreams, or your waking life, the same way again. So get comfortable. Maybe grab some headphones. Because we're about to dive into one of the deepest mysteries of human consciousness. And trust me, this is going to get strange. Let's begin. Why some dreams feel more real than waking life, a scientific exploration. The paradox of dream reality. Close your eyes for a moment, and remember the most vivid dream you've ever had. Not just any dream, but that one dream that felt so incredibly real, you woke up confused about which world was the true one. Maybe you felt textures more vividly than you ever had in waking life. Maybe colors seemed impossibly bright. Maybe emotions hit you with an intensity that left you breathless, even hours after waking. Now here's the uncomfortable question that scientists have been wrestling with for decades. What if those dreams weren't less real than your waking life, but in some fundamental way, more real? This isn't philosophy. This isn't mysticism. This is neuroscience confronting one of the most profound mysteries of human consciousness. And the answer, as we're about to discover, challenges everything you thought you knew about reality itself. The reality that feels more real. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah is a 32-year-old graphic designer from Portland. On a completely ordinary Tuesday morning, she woke up crying. Not because something sad had happened in her real life, but because in her dream, she had spent what felt like years living in a small cottage by the sea. She had a garden there. She knew every flower by name. She had a cat that would curl up on her lap every evening. She had neighbors she'd known for decades. And when she woke up, the loss of that life, that dream life, felt more devastating than any breakup she'd experienced in her actual waking existence. Here's what makes Sarah's experience so fascinating to neuroscientists. Her brain didn't just create a visual hallucination. It created an entire world with depth, history, emotional weight, and sensory richness that her waking life somehow couldn't match. She could remember the smell of salt air, the exact feeling of worn wood beneath her fingers, the weight of the cat in her lap, the sound of wind chimes she'd hung herself. And Sarah isn't alone. Studies show that approximately 47% of people report having had at least one dream that felt more vivid, more emotionally intense, and more real than their actual waking experiences. Some people report dreams so convincing that they spent hours, or even days, after waking, trying to verify whether certain events had actually happened in their real lives or only in their dreams. So what's happening here? How can a hallucination produced by a sleeping brain feel more authentic than actual sensory input from the real world? To answer this, we need to dive deep into the neuroscience of consciousness itself, the architecture of consciousness. Your brain, at this very moment, is not actually experiencing reality directly. I know that sounds strange. You feel like you're seeing these words, hearing sounds around you, feeling the surface beneath you. But that's not quite what's happening. What you're experiencing is your brain's best guess about reality, constructed from incomplete sensory data, filtered through expectations, memories, and predictions. Let me explain this more clearly. Right now, photons are hitting your retina. But your retina doesn't send a complete picture to your brain. Instead, it sends compressed data, fragments of information about edges, movements, contrasts. Your brain then takes this incomplete data and fills in the gaps. It uses past experiences, expectations about how the world should look, and predictive models to construct what you consciously experience as seeing. The same is true for all your senses. Touch, sound, smell, taste, they're all reconstructions. Your conscious experience is essentially a controlled hallucination, constantly constrained and updated by sensory input from the outside world. The philosopher Anil Seth describes consciousness as controlled hallucination, and during waking life, that hallucination is kept in check by reality. But here's where it gets interesting: dreams are uncontrolled hallucinations. During dreams, particularly during REM sleep, the sensory input from the outside world is largely blocked. Your thalamus, which acts as a relay station for sensory information, actively suppresses external signals. Your brain is essentially cut off from reality, left alone with its own generative processes. And without the constraints of reality, something remarkable happens. The brain's imagination runs wild, but not randomly. It draws on the same neural machinery that constructs your waking reality. The visual cortex activates just as intensely during dreams as during waking vision. The emotional centers, particularly the amygdala and limbic system, often show even more activity during dreams than during waking life. The regions responsible for memory, particularly the hippocampus, are highly active, weaving together fragments of past experiences into new narratives. Why dreams can feel hyperreal. Dr. Matthew Walker, a neuroscientist at UC Berkeley and one of the world's leading sleep researchers, has spent years studying why some dreams achieve this quality of hyperreality. His research points to several key factors. First, during REM sleep, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logical thinking, reality testing, and critical analysis, is significantly less active. This is the part of your brain that would normally say, "Wait, that doesn't make sense," or "This can't be real." Without this internal critic, your dream experiences go unquestioned. Everything that happens feels self-evidently true. There's no part of your consciousness standing apart, evaluating, doubting. You're fully immersed, fully believing, fully experiencing. Second, the emotional centers of your brain are not just active during dreams, they're often hyperactive. The amygdala, which processes fear and other intense emotions, can show activity levels during REM sleep that far exceed what's typically seen during waking life. This means that emotions in dreams aren't diluted or muted, they're amplified. When you feel fear in a dream, you might feel it more intensely than any fear you've experienced while awake. When you feel love, it can be overwhelming. When you feel loss, it can be devastating. This emotional intensity creates a powerful sense of realness. We tend to judge the reality of experiences not primarily by their logical coherence, but by their emotional impact. A movie that makes you cry feels more real than a boring documentary about objective facts. Similarly, a dream that moves you emotionally feels more real than a mundane waking moment. Third, and perhaps most surprisingly, the sensory processing areas of your brain during dreams can actually generate more detailed, more vivid experiences than those same areas create during waking life. Why? Because during waking life, your sensory experience is limited by actual sensory input. You can only see what light enters your eyes. You can only hear what sound waves reach your ears. But during dreams, your visual cortex isn't constrained by actual photons. It can generate any image, any color, any level of detail, limited only by the brain's imaginative capacity. Dr. Alan Hobson, a psychiatrist and dream researcher at Harvard Medical School, describes this as the hyperassociativity of dreaming. During dreams, different parts of the brain communicate with each other in ways that don't typically occur during waking consciousness. Visual information, emotional information, memory information, and sensory information all blend together in novel combinations. This can create experiences that feel richer, more layered, more textured than everyday waking reality. The neurotransmitter factor. But there's another crucial piece to this puzzle: neurotransmistry. The chemical environment of your brain during dreams is fundamentally different from its chemical environment during waking life. During REM sleep, when most vivid dreaming occurs, levels of norepinephrine in the brain drop to nearly zero. Norepinephrine is associated with alertness, attention, and the ability to focus on external reality. Without it, your attention turns completely inward. There's nothing pulling your consciousness toward the external world. You're free to dive deep into the internal landscape of your own mind. At the same time, acetylcholine levels during REM sleep are actually higher than during waking life. Acetylcholine is crucial for memory formation, learning, and the creation of vivid mental imagery. High acetylcholine combined with low norepinephrine creates a perfect storm for intense, immersive, internally generated experiences. Additionally, serotonin levels also decrease during REM sleep. Serotonin helps maintain stable, organized thought patterns. With less serotonin, your thoughts become more fluid, more bizarre, more creative. The normal rules and constraints that govern waking thought dissolve. Impossible things become possible. Logic becomes flexible. The boundaries between self and other, between past and present, between memory and imagination, all become permeable. This unique neurochemical cocktail doesn't just allow dreams to happen, it allows them to feel overwhelmingly real, sometimes more real than reality itself. The memory integration theory. But why would evolution create a state where hallucinations feel more real than reality? That seems counterproductive, even dangerous. To understand this, we need to look at what dreams might actually be doing. Dr. Rosalind Cartwright, often called the mother of dream research, spent her career studying the function of dreams. Her research suggests that dreams are fundamentally about emotional regulation and memory integration. During sleep, your brain is processing the experiences of the day, integrating them with past memories, working through emotional conflicts, and essentially updating your model of yourself and the world. This isn't passive playback. It's active reconstruction. Your brain takes memories, breaks them down, recombines them, tests different scenarios, explores different possibilities. Dreams are your brain asking, "What if?" questions. What if this had happened differently? What if I had said this instead? What if I combine this memory with that one? And here's the key insight: for this process to be effective, for these emotional and memory integrations to actually change your neural networks, the experiences need to feel real. Your brain needs to emotionally engage with these scenarios as if they were actually happening. If dreams felt obviously fake, obviously separate from reality, they wouldn't have the emotional impact necessary to actually reshape your emotional responses and memory networks. In other words, dreams feel real because they need to feel real to do their job. The hyperreality of dreams isn't a bug, it's a feature. The simulation theory of consciousness. This brings us to a deeper and more unsettling question: what if what we call reality is also a kind of dream? What if the only difference between waking life and dreaming is that waking life is a hallucination constrained by sensory input, while dreams are hallucinations unconstrained? This isn't as crazy as it sounds. In fact, it's increasingly the mainstream view in neuroscience. The brain, according to this view, is constantly running simulations, constantly generating predictions about what it expects to encounter. Perception is the process of testing these predictions against actual sensory input and updating them when necessary. During waking life, sensory input provides constant error correction. If your brain predicts that the coffee cup is on the left side of the table, but visual input shows it on the right, your brain updates its model. Reality constrains your hallucination. During dreams, there's no error correction. Your brain's simulations run unchecked. But they're generated by the same fundamental processes, using the same neural machinery, drawing on the same memories and emotions. They're not fundamentally different kinds of experiences, they're just unconstrained versions of the same process that generates waking consciousness. This is why dreams can feel so real, and sometimes more real than reality. Because in a deep sense, they are reality. They're your brain doing what it always does, constructing experiential worlds, just without external constraints. The lucid dreaming phenomenon. This theory finds fascinating support in the phenomenon of lucid dreaming. Lucid dreams are dreams where you become aware that you're dreaming, while remaining in the dream. People who experience lucid dreams often report that the dream world doesn't become less vivid when they realize they're dreaming, sometimes it becomes more vivid. Dr. Stephen LaBerge, founder of the Lucidity Institute, has spent decades studying lucid dreaming. His research shows that when people become lucid in dreams, they gain the ability to consciously explore and manipulate the dream world, but the fundamental sense of reality doesn't diminish. Colors don't become less bright. Emotions don't become less intense. If anything, conscious awareness within the dream often heightens the sense of presence and reality. This is paradoxical. You would think that realizing you're in a dream would break the illusion, would make everything feel obviously fake. But it doesn't. The experiential reality of the dream persists, even when you know intellectually that it's a dream. This suggests that the feeling of reality isn't about whether something is objectively real, in some external sense, it's about the quality of the conscious experience itself. Some lucid dreamers report that their dream experiences feel qualitatively different from waking life, but not less real. They describe dream perceptions as sometimes more vivid, more saturated, more present than waking perceptions. They can focus on dream objects and perceive details that seem impossible, microscopic textures, geometric patterns of perfect complexity, colors that don't exist in the physical spectrum. The hard problem of consciousness. This brings us face to face with what philosopher David Chalmers calls the hard problem of consciousness. The hard problem isn't explaining how the brain processes information, how it responds to stimuli, how it controls behavior. Those are the easy problems, and while they're scientifically challenging, they're the kind of problems we know how to approach. The hard problem is explaining why any of this processing is accompanied by conscious experience at all. Why? Does it feel like something to be you? Why is there something it is like to see red, to feel pain, to remember a childhood birthday party, to experience anything? And more specifically for our purposes, why does a particular pattern of neural activity in your visual cortex feel like seeing a sunset, whether that neural activity is caused by actual photons from an actual sunset, or by the spontaneous activation of those neurons during a dream? The answer, as far as neuroscience can currently tell us, is that there is no difference. The subjective experience is generated by the neural activity, not by whatever caused that neural activity. If the same neurons fire in the same pattern, the experience is the same, regardless of whether it was triggered by external reality or internal imagination. This means that dreams aren't inferior copies of reality. They're not fake experiences. They're genuine, conscious experiences, generated by the same mechanisms that generate all conscious experiences. And because they're freed from the constraints of external sensory input, they can sometimes achieve a purity, an intensity, a vividness that surpasses ordinary waking experience. Cultural and historical perspectives. This idea, that dreams might access a deeper or more authentic reality, isn't new. Throughout human history, many cultures have treated dreams not as inferior to waking life but as superior, as gateways to truth, prophecy, spiritual insight, or alternate realities. Ancient Egyptians believed dreams were messages from gods. They built dream temples where people would sleep hoping to receive divine guidance. The Egyptians didn't think dreams were less real than waking life. They thought dreams were more important, more meaningful, more connected to ultimate reality. In many indigenous Australian cultures, the dreamtime isn't just a mythological past, it's an ever-present dimension of reality that can be accessed through dreams and ritual. The dream world and the waking world aren't separate, they're interconnected aspects of a larger reality. Tibetan Buddhists developed sophisticated practices of dream yoga, techniques for maintaining awareness during dreams and using dream states as opportunities for spiritual development. The underlying assumption of these practices is that dream consciousness isn't inferior to waking consciousness, it's a different mode of the same fundamental awareness, and possibly a clearer mode, less cluttered by attachment to material forms. Even in Western philosophy, thinkers have questioned the primacy of waking reality. Descartes famously asked how we can be certain we're not dreaming right now. He couldn't find a definitive answer. His solution, "I think therefore I am," establishes the reality of consciousness itself, but leaves open the question of whether any particular experience, waking or dreaming, represents external reality. The modern scientific understanding, in a strange way, validates these ancient intuitions. While we now understand dreams as neural processes rather than divine messages, we also understand that the distinction between real, external perception and imaginary, internal experience is less absolute than common sense suggests. The neuroplasticity connection. But let's return to concrete neuroscience. There's another reason why some dreams feel more real than waking life, and it has to do with neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on experience. Every experience you have, waking or dreaming, changes your brain. Neurons that fire together wire together. Experience creates neural connections, strengthens some pathways, weakens others. This is how you learn, how you remember, how you become who you are. Now here's the remarkable thing, studies show that dream experiences can create neural changes similar to waking experiences. If you dream about practicing a skill, the motor cortex areas associated with that skill can show activity patterns similar to actual practice. If you dream about emotional situations, the emotional processing regions of your brain undergo similar changes as if you'd experienced those situations while awake. Dr. Aaron Walmsley, a psychologist at Furman University, has conducted studies showing that dreaming about a task can improve performance on that task. In one study, people who dreamed about navigating a virtual maze showed more improvement in the task than people who simply thought about the maze while awake. The dream practice created real neural changes that translated to real performance improvements. This means dreams aren't just random noise. They're experiences that your brain takes seriously, enough to encode them into your neural structure, to learn from them, to be changed by them. And if your brain treats dream experiences as real enough to learn from them, is it any wonder that consciously those experiences feel real? The emotional truth of dreams. There's another dimension to dream reality that we haven't fully explored yet: emotional truth. Dreams might not be factually accurate, they might violate the laws of physics, they might include impossible scenarios and absurd juxtapositions, but they're often emotionally true in ways that waking life can obscure. Dr. Clara Hill, a psychologist at the University of Maryland who specializes in dream work and therapy, argues that dreams reveal emotional truths that we hide from ourselves during waking life. In dreams, our defenses are down. We can't rationalize, can't justify, can't distract ourselves. Raw emotions, unacknowledged fears, hidden desires, suppressed memories, all emerge in symbolic form. When you dream that your teeth are falling out, it might not mean anything literal about dental health. But it might reveal anxiety about aging, about loss of control, about appearing vulnerable. When you dream about being unable to scream, it might express feelings of powerlessness in your waking life. When you dream about flying, it might express a desire for freedom or escape. These emotional truths, precisely because they're presented in symbolic rather than literal form, can feel more real, more penetrating, more significant than the surface facts of daily life. A dream might feel more real than waking life because it's cutting through the noise and getting to what really matters emotionally. Sarah, the woman we discussed at the beginning, who dreamed of a cottage by the sea, later reflected that the dream felt more real because it represented something true about what she wanted from life. Her actual life, while objectively real, felt somehow false, like she was living someone else's story. The dream, though not factually real, was emotionally authentic in a way her waking life wasn't. This suggests another answer to our central question. Some dreams feel more real than waking life because they're more aligned with our deep emotional truths, our authentic desires, our real selves underneath the personas we construct for the world. The flow state comparison. To understand why dreams can achieve this sense of hyperreality, it's useful to compare them to flow states. Flow, a term coined by psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, describes those rare moments when you're completely absorbed in an activity, when self-consciousness disappears, when time seems to distort, when action and awareness merge. During flow, people report that the experience feels intensely real. Musicians describe being inside the music. Athletes describe being in the zone. Writers describe being lost in the story they're creating. These moments, like vivid dreams, are characterized by complete absorption, lack of self-reflection, distorted time perception, and intense clarity. And like dreams, flow states involve specific changes in brain activity. The default mode network, the network of brain regions active when you're self-reflecting and thinking about yourself, becomes less active. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the internal critic and reality tester, quiets down. You stop analyzing and questioning and just experience. The similarity between flow states and vivid dreams suggests that the feeling of reality isn't about accurate representation of external facts. It's about a particular quality of consciousness, a state where you're fully present, fully engaged, not standing apart from experience but merged with it. Dreams achieve this state automatically. During dreams, you can't help but be in flow. There's no self-consciousness, no critical distance, no doubt. You're completely immersed in whatever's happening. And this complete immersion creates that sense of hyperreality. Part 2, the science behind dream vividness. The REM sleep architecture. To truly understand why some dreams feel more real than reality, we need to look more closely at the specific brain state in which these vivid dreams occur. While we can dream during any stage of sleep, the most intense, vivid, bizarre, and memorable dreams happen during REM. Rapid eye movement sleep. REM sleep is neurologically bizarre. In many ways, your brain during REM sleep is more active than during waking consciousness. Brain imaging studies show that overall brain metabolism during REM can equal or exceed waking levels. But this activation isn't uniform, it's weirdly selective. The visual cortex, especially the extrastriate visual areas responsible for complex visual processing, shows intense activation during REM. This explains why dreams are so visual, why they can create detailed, complex visual worlds. The activation levels sometimes exceed what's seen during waking vision, which might explain why dream imagery can seem more vivid than real sight. The limbic system, including the amygdala, hippocampus, and anterior cingulate cortex, all show heightened activity. These are your emotion and memory centers. This explains the emotional intensity of dreams and their tendency to incorporate memories, often in transformed or recombined ways. The motor cortex, which controls movement, is active during REM, planning and executing movements. But simultaneously, the brainstem sends signals that paralyze your major muscle groups. This is REM atonia. Sleep paralysis. Your brain is commanding your body to move, to run, to fight, to fly, but your body can't respond. The experience of movement in dreams is entirely internal, purely neural, which might contribute to the sometimes surreal quality of dream movement, the ability to fly, to move through walls, to teleport. Meanwhile, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, responsible for logical thinking, planning, working, memory, and reality testing, is relatively deactivated. This explains why dreams can violate logic, why impossible things seem normal, why you accept absurd scenarios without question. Your internal fact-checker is offline. This specific pattern of activation and deactivation creates a consciousness that's vivid, emotional, visual, and unrestricted by logic or reality testing. It's a recipe for experiences that feel intensely real, perhaps more real than the relatively constrained, logic-bound, reality-tested experiences of waking life. The predictive processing model. Recent advances in computational neuroscience have led to a new understanding of how the brain generates conscious experience, called predictive processing or the Bayesian brain hypothesis. This model, developed by researchers like Carl Friston and Andy Clark, suggests that the brain is essentially a prediction machine. According to this model, your brain constantly generates predictions about what it expects to experience. These predictions flow down from higher-level brain areas to lower-level sensory areas. Simultaneously, actual sensory information flows up from sensory areas. Conscious perception emerges from the interaction between these top-down predictions and bottom-up sensory data. When predictions match sensory input, everything runs smoothly. When there's a mismatch, a prediction error, the brain has two options: update its predictions to match reality, or update its interpretation of sensory data to match predictions. Usually, in waking life, reality wins. Sensory data overrides predictions. But during dreams, there is no external sensory data, or very little. The thalamus, which normally relays sensory information to the cortex, is actively blocking external inputs during REM sleep. So the brain's predictions, its top-down expectations and simulations, run without correction. Here's the crucial insight: in the predictive processing model, conscious experience is always primarily constructed by predictions, by the brain's internal model. Sensory data doesn't create experience, it merely constrains and corrects it. During dreams, without those constraints, predictions become experienced directly. This explains why dreams can feel so real. They're generated by the same prediction mechanisms that generate waking experience. They're not fundamentally different kinds of experience, they're just predictions running without reality checking. And because they're unconstrained, they can explore possibilities, combinations, and scenarios that reality would never permit, potentially creating experiences that feel richer, stranger, and more intensely present than mundane reality. The default mode network paradox. The default mode network, or DMN, is a network of brain regions that's most active when you're not focused on the external world, when you're daydreaming, remembering, imagining, thinking about yourself and others. The DMN includes regions like the medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate cortex, and medial temporal lobes. During focused waking activities, the DMN decreases its activity. When you're actively engaged with the world, the DMN quiets down. But during rest and internal thought, the DMN dominates. Interestingly, during REM sleep and dreaming, the DMN shows complex patterns of activity. Some parts increase activity, some decrease. But overall, dreaming involves intense activity in DMN-associated regions. This makes sense. Dreams are essentially elaborate daydreams, internally generated narratives and scenarios. But here's the paradox: even though DMN activity during dreams is high, there's no meta-awareness, no sense of yourself as a self having an experience. During waking daydreaming, you maintain awareness that you're imagining something. During dreams, you lose that awareness. You're inside the imagination without recognizing it as imagination. This might be because while the DMN is active, the connections between different parts of the DMN are altered during REM sleep. The internal monitoring and self-awareness functions, which would normally tell you, "This is just my imagination," are disconnected from the content-generating functions. You get the vivid internal experience without the metacognitive awareness that it's self-generated. This disconnection creates total immersion. Without metacognitive awareness, nothing tells you the experience isn't real. The result is dreams that don't just seem real, but that bypass the very mechanisms that would allow you to doubt their reality. Individual differences in dream vividness. Not everyone experiences dreams the same way. Some people have intensely vivid dreams almost every night. Others rarely remember dreams, and when they do, the dreams are vague and colorless. What explains these differences? Research has identified several factors. First, brain anatomy matters. Studies using MRI have found that people who report frequent vivid dreams have increased gray matter volume in specific brain regions, particularly in the medial prefrontal cortex and temporoparietal junction. These are areas involved in mental imagery and self-referential thinking. Second, neurotransmitter balance matters. People with naturally higher acetylcholine levels are more sensitive. Acetylcholine receptors tend to have more vivid dreams. Conversely, people on certain medications that affect neurotransmitter systems, particularly SSRIs that increase serotonin, often report changes in dream vividness and content. Third, psychological factors matter. People who score high on measures of imagination, creativity, and openness to experience report more vivid dreams. People who practice visualization or mental imagery during waking life tend to have more vivid dreams. The cognitive skills you develop while awake carry over into dream experience. Fourth, sleep quality matters. People who sleep deeply and get adequate REM sleep have more opportunity for vivid dreaming. Conversely, sleep disruption, particularly disruption of REM sleep, reduces dream Vividness. Alcohol, while it may help you fall asleep, suppresses REM sleep and therefore suppresses vivid dreaming. Fifth, stress and trauma matter, but in complex ways. Acute stress can intensify dreams, making them more vivid and often more negative. Chronic stress and trauma can lead to nightmares, which are unfortunately among the most vivid and realistic types of dreams. PTSD is associated with particularly intense, hyperreal nightmares that replay traumatic experiences. Finally, age matters. Children and adolescents generally have more vivid dreams than adults. Dream vividness tends to peak in young adulthood and decline gradually with age. This might be related to changes in sleep architecture, declining REM sleep amounts, or changes in brain plasticity and imagination capacity. The nightmare dimension. If we're exploring why some dreams feel more real than waking life, we have to confront the uncomfortable fact that nightmares often achieve the highest levels of perceived reality. Nightmares feel terrifyingly, viscerally real in ways that pleasant dreams sometimes don't. Why? Several factors contribute. First, fear and threat processing engage some of the most primitive, powerful systems in your brain. The amygdala, your fear center, can trigger full-body stress responses, flooding your system with adrenaline and cortisol even during sleep. These physical responses, increased heart rate, rapid breathing, sweating, provide powerful bodily feedback that confirms the reality of the threat you're experiencing in the dream. Second, nightmares often incorporate real memories of threatening situations. If you've experienced trauma, your nightmares might replay elements of that trauma. Because they're built from real memories, they have an authenticity that pure fantasy can't match. The brain recognizes elements from actual experience, which makes the entire scenario feel more real. Third, nightmares frequently occur during late-night REM periods, when REM sleep is most intense and prolonged. These late-night REM periods often produce the most vivid dreams of any kind, and when the content is frightening, the combination of peak vividness and peak emotion creates overwhelming realism. Dr. Antonio Zadra, a researcher at the University of Montreal who specializes in nightmares, has documented that nightmare sufferers often describe their nightmares as more real than real, hyperreal in a disturbing way. The level of detail, the intensity of sensation, the absolute conviction of danger, all exceed normal waking experience. This reveals something important: the sense of reality in dreams isn't primarily about positive or negative content. It's about engagement, about activation of core brain systems, about intensity of experience. Nightmares feel real because they engage your most fundamental survival systems, systems that evolved over millions of years to take threats seriously, to respond to them as if life depends on it. Sleep disorders and dream reality. Certain sleep disorders provide fascinating insights into the relationship between dreams and reality perception. Sleep paralysis, for instance, creates a state where people are awake and consciously aware but their bodies remain in REM atonia, still paralyzed. People experiencing sleep paralysis often hallucinate, seeing shadowy figures, feeling presences in the room, experiencing intense fear. These hallucinations feel absolutely real. People know intellectually they're probably hallucinating, but the experiential reality is overwhelming. This demonstrates that the sense of reality doesn't depend on being actually asleep or actually dreaming. It depends on the brain state, on the pattern of neural activation and Deactivation. REM sleep behavior disorder, where the normal muscle paralysis of REM sleep doesn't occur, creates the opposite situation. People with this disorder physically act out their dreams, sometimes violently. They're asleep and dreaming, but their bodies can move. This disorder demonstrates that dreams contain complete motor programs, full behavioral scripts that would be executed if the body weren't paralyzed. Narcolepsy, a disorder where REM sleep intrudes into waking life, creates situations where people have dreamlike hallucinations while awake, or experience sudden loss of muscle tone triggered by emotions. Narcolepsy blurs the boundary between sleeping and waking, between dreaming and perceiving, and people with narcolepsy often struggle to distinguish memories of real events from memories of dreams or hallucinations. These disorders reveal that the distinction between dreaming and waking is less absolute than we assume. They're different configurations of the same neural systems, and those systems can be mixed, blended, or rapidly switched in ways that challenge our categories. The phenomenology of hyperreal dreams. Let's return to direct experience. What do people actually report when they have dreams that feel more real than waking life? Psychologists have collected thousands of these reports, and certain themes emerge consistently. First, sensory intensity. People describe colors as more saturated, more luminous. They describe sounds as clearer, more distinct. They describe tactile sensations as more vivid, textures more detailed. One person described dreaming of touching tree bark and feeling every ridge, every crack, every bit of moss, with a clarity they'd never experienced while awake. Second, emotional intensity. People describe feelings and dreams that eclipse anything they've felt while awake. Not just fear and nightmares, but joy, love, peace, wonder, all experienced with an intensity that waking life rarely matches. One person described a dream where they experienced such profound peace that they wept for days after waking, mourning the loss of that state. Third, presence and immediacy. Hyperreal dreams lack the quality of distance or detachment. You're not observing the dream, you are the dream. There's no gap between experience and experiencer. One person described it as the difference between watching a movie and living a life. Fourth, meaningfulness and significance. Hyperreal dreams often feel deeply meaningful, even if the meaning can't be articulated. There's a sense that something important is happening, something true is being revealed. This might relate to the symbolic and emotional processing functions of dreams, the feeling that deep psychological work is occurring. Fifth, temporal distortion. Many people report that time in hyperreal dreams feels different, sometimes expanded, sometimes compressed, sometimes nonlinear. They might experience what feels like years in a dream that lasted only minutes, or experience past, present, and future simultaneously. This temporal fluidity might contribute to the sense of dreaming reality as somehow more fundamental than waking reality, where time flows in only one direction. The philosophy of dream reality. These observations bring us back to philosophical territory. Throughout history, philosophers have used dreams to question the nature of reality itself. If dreams can be indistinguishable from waking experience, how do you know you're not dreaming right now? This is Descartes' famous question, and it's never been satisfactorily answered. Modern philosophers like Thomas Metzinger argue that all conscious experience, waking or dreaming, is essentially virtual reality generated by the brain. There is no direct experience of reality. All experience is mediated by neural processes that construct a model of reality. From this perspective, the question, are dreams real, becomes almost meaningless. Dreams are real experiences, real states of consciousness. They're not real external situations, but then, our waking experience of external situations is also constructed, also virtual. Just constrained by different inputs. The philosopher Jennifer Wint at Monash University has developed a comprehensive theory of dreaming consciousness. She argues that dreams are immersive spatio-temporal hallucinations, experiences where you feel present in a world, even though that world is entirely self-generated. But she also points out that waking perception is also, in a sense, a controlled hallucination, a simulation constrained by sensory input. The difference between dreaming and waking, according to Wint, isn't that one is real and the other isn't. It's that they're different modes of consciousness with different relationships to sensory input and different degrees of volitional control. Neither is more fundamentally real as a type of experience. This philosophical perspective helps explain why dreams can feel more real than waking life. If both are constructed experiences, then the one that feels more real is simply the one that achieves greater phenomenological intensity, greater emotional engagement, greater immersive presence. And dreams, freed from the constraints and distractions of external reality, can sometimes achieve that intensity more fully than waking life. The creative dimension. There's another aspect of dream reality we need to consider: creativity and problem solving. Throughout history, people have reported solving problems in dreams, having creative breakthroughs in dreams, gaining insights in dreams that eluded them while awake. The chemist August Kekulé famously discovered the ring structure of benzene in a dream. He dreamed of a snake eating its own tail, and upon waking realized this image represented the circular structure he'd been searching for. Paul McCartney heard the melody for Yesterday in a dream. Mary Shelley conceived Frankenstein in a dream. Einstein reported that his theory of relativity emerged from a dream about riding on a beam of light. Are these just anecdotes? Or is there something about the dream state that genuinely facilitates creativity and insight? Research suggests the latter. Dreams appear to facilitate what psychologists call remote association. The ability to connect seemingly unrelated concepts. During waking life, your thinking follows well-worn pathways. Concepts are organized into categories. Logic constrains possibility. But during dreams, particularly during REM sleep, these constraints relax. Disparate concepts can combine in novel ways. Impossible scenarios can be explored. Metaphorical thinking flourishes. Dr. Sarah Mednick at UC Irvine has conducted studies showing that REM sleep enhances creative problem-solving more than equivalent time spent awake or in non-REM sleep. People awaken from REM sleep perform better on creative association tasks than people awaken from other sleep stages or people who stayed awake. The mechanism appears to be the same hypersociativity we discussed earlier. During REM, different parts of the brain communicate more freely. Memories from different domains, skills from different areas, knowledge from different contexts, all become available to mix and recombine. The result is genuine creativity, genuine insight, genuine discoveries that emerge during dreams. This creative power of dreams might contribute to their sense of reality. When dreams reveal genuine insights, when they solve real problems, when they create genuinely new ideas, they're not just fantasy. They're performing real cognitive work, generating real value. A dream that solves a problem you've struggled with for weeks feels real because in a meaningful sense, it is real. The solution is real, even if the dream scenario that generated it was fantastical. The spiritual and transcendent experience. We can't fully explore why dreams feel more real without addressing the spiritual dimension. Many people report dreams that feel not just real, but more real than anything they've experienced while awake, dreams that feel transcendent, numinous, sacred. These are dreams that seem to touch something beyond ordinary experience. Dreams of deceased loved ones that feel like genuine visitations. Dreams of divine beings or spiritual guides. Dreams of cosmic consciousness, of unity with everything. Dreams that feel like revelations, like direct contact with ultimate reality. From a neuroscientific perspective, we can identify the brain mechanisms that create these experiences. The temporoparietal junction, which helps maintain the boundary between self and world, can become less active during certain dream states. When this happens, the sense of being a separate self can dissolve, leading to experiences of unity or merging. The posterior superior parietal lobe, which creates your spatial sense of where your body is, can also be altered during dreams. When this happens, people report out-of-body experiences, flying, or sensations of infinite space. Activity in the right temporal lobe, particularly in deep structures like the hippocampus and amygdala, is associated with feelings of presence, of sensing entities or beings. Hyperactivity in these regions during dreams can create vivid sensations of encountering others, including deceased loved ones or spiritual beings. But here's where science reaches a limit. We can describe the neural correlates of these experiences, but we can't definitively say what they mean. When someone dreams of a deceased parent and wakes up convinced they've had a real encounter, science can explain the brain activity that created the experience. But science cannot definitively say whether that experience was merely a brain But science cannot definitively say whether that experience was merely a brain event or whether it was also simultaneously some form of genuine contact. The philosophical position you take on this question depends on your broader metaphysical commitments. Materialists would say these are purely brain events, beautiful and meaningful perhaps, but not contact with anything beyond the brain. Others, including many religious and spiritual practitioners, would argue that the brain is the instrument through which such contacts occur, not the source of them. What we can say scientifically is that these transcendent dream experiences feel overwhelmingly real to those who have them. They create lasting changes in beliefs, values, and behavior. They're among the most significant experiences people report in their lives. And whether or not they represent contact with something beyond the brain, they represent something profoundly real about human consciousness, our capacity for awe, our hunger for meaning, our sense that reality includes depths beyond the surface of waking life. The trauma processing function. Let's shift to a more clinically grounded aspect of dream reality: trauma processing. Dreams play a crucial role in how we process difficult experiences, and this function might be another reason why some dreams feel so intensely real. When something traumatic happens, your brain needs to integrate that experience, to make sense of it, to reduce its emotional charge so it doesn't overwhelm you. This integration happens largely during sleep, particularly during REM sleep and dreaming. Dr. Murray Raskind at the University of Washington has studied nightmares in veterans with PTSD. His research shows that nightmares, while distressing, are actually part of the brain's attempt to process traumatic memories. The nightmares replay the trauma, not to torture the person, but to try to integrate the experience, to reduce its emotional intensity through repeated exposure. Unfortunately, in PTSD, this process malfunctions. The nightmares replay the trauma without successfully reducing its emotional charge. The person wakes up terrified, night after night, and the trauma remains unprocessed. But this malfunction reveals the normal function. Dreams are supposed to help us process difficult experiences by replaying them in a safe context where we can emotionally digest them. This processing function might explain why some dreams feel more real than waking life. The brain needs these processing dreams to be emotionally real, to genuinely evoke the feelings associated with the experience being processed. If the dream didn't feel real, if it didn't trigger authentic emotional responses, it wouldn't accomplish its processing function. Dr. Rosalind Cartwright's research on divorce found that people who dreamed about their divorces and ex-spouses were less depressed. A year later than people who didn't dream about these topics. The dreams, even when unpleasant, were helping people process the loss, work through the emotions, and move forward. But this processing only works if the dreams feel emotionally real, real enough to trigger the emotions that need processing. The memory consolidation story. We've touched on memory several times, but let's look more carefully at how dreams participate in memory consolidation. This is one of the most well-established functions of sleep and dreaming. During waking life, you're constantly having experiences. But not all experiences are equally important. Some need to be remembered, encoded into long-term memory. Others can be forgotten. Sleep, particularly REM sleep, is when your brain decides what to keep and what to discard. But this isn't passive storage. During sleep, your brain doesn't just save memories, it actively reconstructs them, integrates them with existing knowledge, extracts patterns and principles. Dreams are the phenomenological side of this process. When you dream about things that happened during the day, your brain is actively working on those memories. Dr. Matthew Wilson at MIT conducted famous studies with rats learning to navigate mazes. He recorded neural activity in the hippocampus during waking exploration and during subsequent sleep. He found that during REM sleep, the same neural patterns that occurred during maze navigation replayed, but faster, and often in reverse or in novel combinations. The rats' brains were practicing, reviewing, optimizing. Humans do the same thing. When people learn a new skill and then sleep, they dream about that skill. Musicians dream of playing music. Athletes dream of their sports. Students dream of material they're studying. And people who dream about what they're learning perform better on tests than people who sleep without dreaming or who don't sleep at all. But here's the key point: for this consolidation to work, the dream rehearsal needs to feel real. If you dream about playing piano but it feels abstract or detached, your motor cortex won't update its programs as effectively. But if the dream of playing feels real, if you can feel the keys under your fingers, hear the notes, sense the rhythm, then the neural patterns get properly reinforced. The realism of dreams isn't a bug or a trick. It's essential to their function. Dreams feel real because they need to. Feel real to do their job of consolidating and optimizing your memories and skills. The continuity hypothesis. There's a theory in dream research called the continuity hypothesis, which proposes that dream content is continuous with waking concerns, that dreams reflect our waking life preoccupations, relationships, emotions, and experiences. Studies generally support this, finding that about 60% of dream content relates to experiences from the previous day or week. But there's a paradox here. If dreams mostly reflect waking concerns, why do they feel different from waking life? Why the bizarreness, the impossible scenarios, the transformations and distortions? The answer seems to be that dreams take waking concerns and process them through a different mode of cognition. Waking thought is linear, logical, constrained. Dream thought is associative, metaphorical, unconstrained. But both are working on the same underlying issues. When you dream that you show up to work naked, you're not literally worried about nudity. You're worried about being exposed, vulnerable, unprepared. The dream takes that abstract concern and gives it vivid, literal, emotionally powerful form. When you dream that you can fly, you might be processing feelings about freedom, escape, overcoming limitations. The dream takes these abstractions and makes them viscerally real. This metaphorical processing might be another reason dreams can feel more real than waking life. Waking life often operates at the surface level, dealing with concrete details and practical demands. Dreams operate at the level of underlying emotions and meanings. They cut through surface details to get at what really matters. Emotionally. An emotional truth, as we've discussed, feels more real than factual truth. The cultural shaping of dreams. While the basic neuroscience of dreaming is universal, the content and interpretation of dreams varies enormously across cultures. And culture can influence not just what you dream about, but how real dreams feel, and what significance you give them. In Western cultures, particularly in modern secular contexts, dreams are often dismissed as meaningless noise, random brain activity, just dreams. This cultural attitude might actually reduce the perceived reality of dreams. If you believe dreams are meaningless, you're less likely to attend to them, less likely to remember them, less likely to be moved by them. But in cultures that treat dreams as meaningful, significant, connected to reality, dreams take on greater weight. Among the Achur people of Ecuador, dreams are discussed every morning and treated as important sources of information about the world. Achur children are taught to remember and value their dreams from early childhood. Unsurprisingly, Achur adults report rich, vivid, highly memorable dream lives. Among certain Sufi traditions, dream work is a central spiritual practice. Practitioners train themselves to remember dreams, interpret dreams, and even control dreams. These practices create dream lives of extraordinary richness and vividness. Even in modern Western culture, people who keep dream journals, who discuss their dreams, who treat dreams as meaningful, report more vivid and memorable dreams than people who ignore their dreams. This suggests that the perceived reality of dreams is partly socially constructed. Culture teaches us how to attend to dreams, how to value them, how real to consider them. And our attention and valuation, in turn, influence the actual phenomenological quality of our dreams. The neuroscience of meaning-making. Why do some dreams feel not just vivid but meaningful, charged with significance? The sense that a dream means something, that it's trying to tell you something, is distinct from mere sensory vividness. Yet it's a key component of dreams that feel more real than real. This sense of significance appears to involve specific brain regions. The anterior cingulate cortex, which is involved in assigning emotional significance to events, shows altered activity during dreaming. The parahippocampal regions, which context to memories and create narrative coherence, are highly active during dreams. When these meaning-making systems are active without the reality testing of the prefrontal cortex, everything can feel significant. Random associations feel like profound connections. Chance juxtapositions feel like meaningful symbols. The brain's pattern detection systems run unchecked, finding patterns everywhere. This hyperactive meaning-making might be why dreams so often feel like they're revealing something important. And paradoxically, sometimes they are. Because even if the specific content is nonsensical, the emotional and psychological themes the dream is working with are often genuinely important. The dream may use absurd scenarios to process real concerns. Dr. Antti Rauvansuo at the University of Turku in Finland has proposed the threat simulation theory of dreaming. He argues that dreams evolved to simulate threatening situations so we can practice dealing with them. From this perspective, nightmares aren't malfunctions, they're rehearsals. The brain creates realistic simulations of threats so you can practice responding, building skills that might save your life in a real emergency. Whether or not this theory fully explains dreaming, it illustrates how evolution might have selected for dreams that feel real. If dreams are simulations meant to prepare you for real situations, they need to feel real to be effective training. The social dimension of dream reality. Dreams can also feel more real than waking life because of their social and emotional content. Many of our most vivid dreams involve other people, particularly people we care deeply about. And the emotional interactions we have with dream characters can feel more authentic, more honest, more emotionally true than our waking interactions. Why? Partially because in dreams, social facades drop away. You can't maintain pretense in a dream the way you can while awake. If you're angry at someone but suppressing it while awake, that anger will emerge in dreams. If you love someone but haven't acknowledged it, dreams will reveal it. If you fear losing someone, dreams will confront you with that fear. Dreams about deceased loved ones are particularly powerful. Many people report dreams of the dead that feel like genuine visitations, like the person was really there. These dreams are often characterized by extraordinary vividness and emotional intensity. People wake up convinced they've had genuine contact. From a neuroscience perspective, the brain is reconstructing the deceased person from memory, creating a Simulation based on everything you knew about them. But because this simulation is running on the same neural substrate that processed real interactions with that person when they were alive, it can feel identical to those real interactions. And in a meaningful sense, it is real. The emotional connection, the love, the relationship, all of that is real. And exists in your neural patterns. When those patterns activate during dreams, the relationship becomes present again. The person may be physically gone, but the relationship, encoded in your brain, can be re-experienced through dreams. This might be part of why such dreams feel more real than waking life. Waking life, with the person gone, feels incomplete, wrong. The dream, where the person is present, feels right, complete, real. The neurochemistry of insight. We've discussed the neurochemistry of REM sleep, but let's look more specifically at how it facilitates insight. The unique neurochemical state of dreaming doesn't just create vivid imagery, it creates conditions for breakthroughs in understanding. High acetylcholine supports the formation of new associations. It helps link together previously separate memories and ideas. Low norepinephrine reduces the constraints of established thought patterns. Low serotonin makes thinking more fluid and flexible. But there's another neurochemical player, cortisol. Cortisol typically follows a daily rhythm, lowest in the evening, rising through the night, peaking in early morning. This morning cortisol surge happens to coincide with the longest, most intense REM periods of the night. Cortisol, while often associated with stress, also plays a role in memory consolidation and emotional processing. The combination of high cortisol and the REM neurochemical profile in early morning dreams might create optimal conditions for emotional breakthrough and insight. This might explain why early morning dreams, the dreams right before waking, are often the most memorable, most vivid, and most significant. These are the dreams people remember years later. These are the dreams that change lives. The reality of these dreams might be enhanced by their neurochemical context. They're occurring in a brain state uniquely configured for making connections, achieving insights, processing emotions. When a dream achieves genuine insight, reveals genuine emotional truth, solves genuine problems, it feels real because its effects are real. The question of dream control. We've discussed lucid dreaming briefly, but let's examine it more deeply. Lucid dreaming, where you become aware you're dreaming and can potentially control the dream, raises fascinating questions about dream reality. Some people naturally experience lucid dreams frequently. Others never do. But lucid dreaming can be learned. Techniques include reality testing throughout the day, setting intentions before sleep, maintaining awareness while falling asleep, and recognizing dream signs. Dr. Ursula Voss at Frankfurt University has studied the neuroscience of lucid dreaming. Her research shows that during lucid dreams, the frontal regions of the brain, particularly the frontopolar cortex, show increased activity compared to non-lucid dreams. This makes sense, as these regions are involved in metacognition. Thinking about thinking, awareness of awareness. But here's what's fascinating: even though these reality testing regions become active, even though you know you're dreaming, the dream doesn't feel less real. If anything, lucid dreamers report that lucidity enhances vividness. When you're lucid in a dream, you can pay closer attention, examine details more carefully, engage more fully with the experience. This suggests that the sense of reality doesn't depend on believing the experience is externally real. Reality, as a quality of experience, is about vividness, presence, engagement, not about metaphysical status. Moreover, the ability to control lucid dreams is often overestimated. Even when lucid, you can't control everything. The dream world maintains its own logic, its own autonomy. You can decide to fly, but you can't simply will the entire dream to disappear. You can change specific elements, but the dream continues to generate content spontaneously. This partial control mirrors something important about all consciousness. Even in waking life, you don't control your perceptions, your thoughts, your feelings as completely as you might imagine. Consciousness is always a collaborative process between voluntary and involuntary processes. Dreams, even lucid dreams, simply make this more obvious. The evolutionary perspective. Why would evolution create a state where hallucinations feel real? From an evolutionary perspective, this seems risky. Shouldn't organisms be able to clearly distinguish imagination from reality? The answer appears to be that the benefits outweigh the risks. Dreams occur during sleep when you're not interacting with the external world anyway. The risk of confusing dreams with reality is minimized because you're lying still in a safe place. Meanwhile, the benefits of vivid, emotionally engaging dreams are substantial. Dreams allow for threat simulation without real danger. You can practice dealing with predators, with social conflicts, with challenging situations, without risking actual harm. But this practice is only effective if it feels real, if it triggers authentic emotional and physiological responses. Dreams allow for memory consolidation and skill practice. But again, this works best if the dreams are vivid enough to activate the same neural circuits that are active during real experiences. Dreams allow for creative problem solving and innovation. The unconstrained associations of dreams can produce insights that constrained waking thought might never achieve. But these insights only become consciously accessible if the dreams are memorable, and dreams are most memorable when they're vivid and emotionally engaging. From this evolutionary perspective, dream reality isn't a bug, it's a sophisticated adaptation. The brain's ability to generate experiences that feel real without external input is a feature that provides significant survival and reproductive advantages. The integration theory. Let's pull together what we've learned into a comprehensive understanding. Why do some dreams feel more real than waking life? The answer involves multiple factors working together. First, neurologically, dreams involve intense activation of sensory and emotional brain regions without the inhibitory constraints of reality testing regions. This creates vivid, emotionally intense experiences. Second, neurochemically, dreams occur in a unique brain state characterized by high acetylcholine, low norepinephrine, and low serotonin. This cocktail enhances vividness while reducing critical distance. Third, functionally, dreams serve important purposes including memory consolidation, emotional processing, threat simulation, and creative problem solving. These functions require dreams to feel real to be effective. Fourth, psychologically, dreams often access deeper emotional truths than waking consciousness. They can feel more real because they're more emotionally authentic, more aligned with core concerns and values. Fifth, phenomenologically, dreams achieve a quality of total immersion that waking life often lacks. Without metacognitive distance, without self-consciousness, the experience feels more immediate, more present. Sixth, culturally and individually, people who attend to dreams, value them, remember them, and work with them tend to have more vivid dream lives. The reality of dreams is partly shaped by how much attention we give them. The key insight is that reality, as a quality of conscious experience, is not about correspondence to external facts. It's about a specific experiential quality, vividness, emotional engagement, meaningfulness, presence. Dreams can achieve this quality as fully as or more fully than, waking experience. The therapeutic applications. Understanding why dreams feel real has important therapeutic applications. Psychotherapists have long worked with dreams, but modern neuroscience is enhancing these practices. Image rehearsal therapy for nightmares, developed by Dr. Barry Krakow, involves having patients rewrite their nightmares while awake, imagining different endings. Then, through practice, these new versions sometimes replace the original nightmares. This works because the brain can't always distinguish vivid imagination from actual dreams, and the imagined scenarios can overwrite the problematic ones. Dream-focused therapy, developed by Dr. Clara Hill, helps clients explore the emotional meanings in their dreams. By discussing dreams with a therapist, clients often gain insights into emotions and concerns they've been avoiding in waking life. The vivid, honest emotional content of dreams makes them valuable therapeutic material. Lucid dreaming therapy shows promise for PTSD treatment. By training patients to become lucid during nightmares, they can learn to change the nightmare content, or simply wake themselves up. This gives patients a sense of control that can reduce nightmare frequency and intensity. Even simply encouraging people to remember and record their dreams can have therapeutic benefits. Dream journaling increases self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and psychological insight. The process of attending to dreams and taking them seriously can deepen people's relationship with their inner lives. The technological future. New technologies are beginning to allow unprecedented investigation and even manipulation of dream states. Targeted memory reactivation, a technique where specific sounds or cues are presented during sleep, can influence dream content. Researchers can, for example, play a tone associated with a recently learned task during sleep and enhance memory consolidation. Transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS, can modulate brain activity during sleep. Some researchers are exploring whether TMS could induce lucid dreaming or enhance dream vividness. EEG monitoring combined with machine learning is enabling researchers to decode dream content to some degree. While we can't yet read dreams in detail, researchers can determine general categories of what people are dreaming about based on their brain activity patterns. These technologies raise ethical questions. Should we manipulate dreams therapeutically? Should we record dreams? What about privacy, if dreams can be read? These questions will become increasingly urgent as the technology advances. The personal meaning. Beyond all the neuroscience and theory, the question of dream reality is deeply personal. Each person must decide for themselves what their dreams mean, how real to consider them, how much weight to give them. For some people, dreams are simply interesting phenomena, neurological byproducts to be studied scientifically but not taken too seriously. For others, dreams are profound sources of meaning, guidance, insight, even spiritual revelation. What the science tells us is that both perspectives have validity. Dreams are neurological phenomena that can be studied objectively. And dreams are meaningful experiences that can reveal emotional truths and provide genuine insights. The feeling that some dreams are more real than waking life isn't an illusion to be dismissed. It's a genuine property of consciousness, a state that can be achieved under certain conditions. Whether you interpret that hyperreality as purely neurological, or as something more, depends on your broader worldview. What we can say with certainty is that consciousness is stranger and more marvelous than common sense suggests. The fact that your brain can generate experiences that feel more real than reality, that can teach you things you didn't know you knew, that can create entire worlds complete with physics and history, that can solve problems and process emotions and simulate futures and replay pasts, all while you lie motionless in bed, is remarkable regardless of how you interpret it. Practical implications. So what does all this mean practically? How should you relate to your dreams given what we now know? First, take your dreams seriously. Not necessarily literally, but seriously. They're not random noise. They're your brain doing important work. Pay attention to them. Second, remember your dreams. Keep a dream journal. The simple act of writing down dreams increases dream recall and often increases dream vividness. It trains your brain that dreams matter. Third, look for patterns. What themes recur in your dreams? What emotions come up repeatedly? What unfinished business or unresolved concerns keep appearing? Dreams often point to issues that need conscious attention. Fourth, explore your dreams creatively. Draw them, discuss them, write about them. This creative engagement can deepen their meaning and help integrate their insights into waking life. Fifth, consider the emotional truth of your dreams even when the content is bizarre. If you dream about being chased by a monster, maybe you're avoiding something in waking life. If you dream about flying, maybe you need more freedom. The specific imagery matters less than the emotional themes. Sixth, don't overinterpret. Not every dream is profound. Some dreams are just your brain processing mundane experiences. Stay curious but skeptical. Seventh, if you have recurring nightmares, seek help. Nightmares can be treated effectively. You don't have to Suffer through them. 8. Experiment with lucid dreaming if it interests you. The ability to become conscious during dreams can be learned and can offer unique insights and experiences. 9th, respect the mystery. Despite everything science has learned about dreams, much remains unknown. Consciousness itself, in dreams or waking, retains profound mystery. Stay open to that mystery. The deeper question. We've explored why some dreams feel more real than waking life from many angles: neuroscience, psychology, philosophy, evolution, culture, personal experience. But perhaps we've been asking the wrong question all along. The question, why do some dreams feel more real than waking life, assumes that waking life is the baseline, the standard of reality, and dreams are deviations that need explanation. But what if it's the other way around? What if dreams are baseline consciousness, pure awareness generating experience, and waking life is consciousness constrained and diminished by the need to interact with physical reality? In dreams, consciousness is free. It can create anything, go anywhere, be anyone. It's pure potential, pure creativity. In waking life, consciousness is shackled to a body, limited by physics, constrained by survival needs. From this perspective, dreams don't feel more real than waking life despite being less real. They feel more real because they are more real, more purely expressions of consciousness itself. This is speculation, philosophy rather than science. But it points to something important. The question of what's really real may not have a simple answer. Reality might be multi-layered, with both dreams and waking life representing different aspects, different dimensions, of something larger. Conclusion: the mystery remains. We've covered immense ground in this exploration. We've examined the neuroscience of consciousness, the architecture of REM sleep, the neurochemistry of dreaming, the functions of dreams, individual differences, disorders, philosophy, culture, evolution, therapy, technology, and personal meaning. And yet, the mystery remains. We can explain the mechanisms, we can describe the processes, we can catalog the phenomena. But the fundamental question, what it's like to be a conscious being, why there's something it's like to see, to feel, to experience, to dream, that question remains unanswered. Perhaps it's unanswerable. Perhaps consciousness is the one thing that cannot be fully explained because explanation requires stepping outside what's being explained, and we can never step outside consciousness. We can only be conscious. But that doesn't diminish the value of the investigation. Understanding the mechanisms of dreaming helps us understand consciousness more broadly. Recognizing that dreams can achieve experiential reality as profound as waking life challenges our assumptions about what's real and what matters. The person who wakes from a dream feeling they've touched something more real than their waking life isn't confused or mistaken. They've experienced a genuine property of consciousness. They've discovered that reality, as a quality of experience, is not fixed or singular but variable and multi-layered. Your consciousness is capable of generating worlds. It does this every night. Sometimes those worlds are mundane, sometimes bizarre, sometimes beautiful, sometimes terrifying. Sometimes they feel ordinary. And sometimes they feel more real than anything you've ever experienced. This capacity, this ability to generate reality from within, is one of the most profound aspects of being human. It's not a bug to be fixed or an illusion to be dispelled. It's a feature of consciousness itself. So the next time you have a dream that feels more real than waking life, don't dismiss it. Don't rationalize it away. Sit with it. What made it feel so real? What did you experience there? What does it tell you about what consciousness can do, about who you are, about the nature of reality itself? The answer to why some dreams feel more real than waking life is ultimately this: because consciousness is more vast, more creative, more mysterious than we typically recognize. Dreams let us glimpse that vastness. They show us that reality, our reality, the felt quality of our experience, can be richer, stranger, more intense than everyday life suggests. And that glimpse, that recognition of the extraordinary nature of ordinary consciousness, might be the most important insight of all. The worlds you create each night when you close your eyes are as real as any world can be. They're your worlds, generated by your brain, experienced by your consciousness. They teach you, change you, reveal you to yourself. In the end, the question isn't whether dreams are real. They are. The question is, what kind of reality are they? And what does that tell us about the reality we inhabit while awake? These questions don't have final answers. They're invitations to investigation, to curiosity, to wonder. Every night, you're conducting experiments in consciousness. Every morning, you're waking up with new data. Pay attention. Remember. Reflect. Integrate. Your dreams are trying to tell you something, not necessarily through their specific symbols and scenarios, but through their very existence. They're telling you that consciousness is vast. That reality is constructed. That your brain contains multitudes. That the boundary between inner and outer, between real and imagined, between actual and possible, is far more permeable than you think. Some dreams feel more real than waking life because in those moments, you're experiencing consciousness at its most vivid, most unguarded, most true. You're experiencing yourself without filters, without pretense, without the constraints of external reality. That experience is precious. It's a gift that arrives unbidden every night. Don't waste it. Don't ignore it. Dream well. Remember well. Live well. The reality you generate while sleeping and the reality you navigate while waking are both expressions of the same fundamental mystery, consciousness itself. And that mystery, that profound strangeness of being a conscious creature in a vast universe, that awareness that looks out through your eyes and dreams through your sleeping brain, that is the deepest reality of all. Everything else, dreams and waking life alike, are just different ways that mystery expresses itself. So when you wake tomorrow morning, whether from a forgotten dream or a vivid one, remember this: the fact that you dream at all is extraordinary. The fact that some dreams feel more real than reality is not a flaw in your brain's design, it's a feature that reveals the true nature of consciousness itself. You are a reality-generating system. Every moment, waking or dreaming, you're constructing experience from neural activity. And sometimes, freed from the constraints of external input, that construction achieves a purity and intensity that ordinary life cannot match. That's not an escape from reality. That's an encounter with what consciousness really is. Welcome to the mystery. Welcome to the dream. Welcome to reality, in all its impossible, multidimensional, endlessly surprising forms.